Okay, so welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll do a little quick lesson here, really quick. So this is just for 1 hour. We're gonna get together. This is we're gonna give you a quick brief about the Aloha AI Network for schools that Oceanit has been putting together. What is it? Oh, this is the agenda. So before we begin, so basically 12 o'clock. We'll end by 1. Now, hopefully, I'll answer some of the more major questions that you have. We'll cover what's Aloha AI, why do we start this thing, and this next part was really this pivot to how do we use it to fight this COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the top questions people have about what we're trying to do. Then I'm gonna pivot to have um, part of my team to actually talk about artificial intelligence, the future, some of the things that we're doing around artificial intelligence at Oceanit. We'll talk about the Aloha AI network and the dashboarding tool that we have. And again, we'll end at 1 o'clock. And then for those who have more questions, we'll restart at 1:05. But we'll stay online. Okay. So for those of you who don't know Oceanit, the best way sometimes for me to explain it is if you ever watch James Bond and so James Bond's the guy on the right, and there's a guy named Q, and that's the young kid on the left. He's the head of and he has that lab of engineers and scientists that invent things for James Bond. So Oceanit, I feel like we don't do things for secret agents, but we're inventors. We create the future. And so what's been really interesting is actually during times of great chaos like we're in right now, we're incredibly busy because people need new things, new ways of doing things, and that's kind of the business that Oceanit is in. Now, why I think all of this is so important is we're kind of understanding too that in Hawaii, at least in Hawaii, it's some of you know about the Alice study. About almost 50% of our families here in Hawaii cannot afford to live here, and because of this pandemic, it's causing even greater a greater crisis as well. But the thing on the left shows you kind of the industries that we've evolved around for quite a while. And we have some really great industries like travel and tourism, but we need to continue to look at how do we build upon the great things that we have in Hawaii and create a more resilient economy. And by the way, the graphic on the right side on the top, that chart, that line graph, is the medium price of a home in Hawaii, and the red line is what a two-earner income family would need to make in order to survive and actually afford a home in Hawaii. And the main point is those two lines will probably never meet. So Oceanit has been doing community things for quite a while, and more recently we started formalizing our efforts. And so this is kind of like our hub might be, and it's really around how do we help organizations and communities around the world to become more adaptable by applying breakthrough innovations and mindsets to public education. So a little bit about the Aloha AI network that we started, kind of the why and why now. I'm going to show some pictures of people here. The first thing is, about 10 years ago, we started bringing design thinking into public education. And what we've seen over the last 10 years is young people and students, and many of you have experienced this because you're teachers, is kids have really great ideas. But what's hard sometimes is their ability to implement those ideas. They lack kind of the technical abilities. And so for Oceanit, we are doing kind of the next generation of artificial intelligence. So the thing you're going to see in maybe 10 or 15, 20 years, we're kind of working on for government customers. But what we started looking at about 3 years ago was what is the state of artificial intelligence today? And to my surprise, it was that horizon was actually closer than I was anticipating. And so we started looking at this idea, how do we bring artificial intelligence to students today and get them exposed so that they can potentially create kind of the next generation of companies here in Hawaii and in different parts of the world. We started 2 years ago hosting artificial intelligence workshops. And more recently, just in January of this year, we started to rolled out this Aloha AI system that we'll talk about more. in Waipahu High School and Kamehameha School's Kapalama campus. So those are the first two schools we started implementing before this COVID-19 thing happened. Now, when we were doing these workshops, uh, we did about 6 of them here in Hawaii. People would always ask, what's the next step? And I would just say, I don't know. We were just trying to get everyone educated about AI because that is going to be a very disruptive movement around the world. And last year, Keith Hayashi, the gentleman on the bottom right corner, said to me, this is really amazing. And how do we bring this to our students? So we started brainstorming and thinking about how do we do this. And so that's the genesis of this idea for Aloha AI, is how do we bring the latest technologies around artificial intelligence and put it in the hands of students in public schools and in schools around the world. And because of this COVID-19 issue, I think it's even more important now that so many of us and many of us are not at work. We have to be at home. Our students are at home. Our kids are at home. Our teachers are at home. And how do we give them this kind of superpowered technology, but applied to probably the worst thing that's happened to the world in over 100 years? So this idea of how do we use technology like this to fight COVID-19? And so here's another bit.ly, but this is actually a pretty detailed PDF of kind of the things we're going to cover today, but it goes a little bit more into depth. So if you want to get more details, there's a PDF that you can grab. And again, you'll have access to this presentation. So the original concept for Aloha AI was to put these AI sensors in public schools. And so as I mentioned, Waipahu High School was the first school that actually was putting these sensors in. And I know we have Carl on the line, and we were putting these in his library to do a utilization study. How's the library used? Do people actually go into the students go into the bookshelf areas and things like that? And we started, that was really the focus, is we're going to put this into the school. But because of the COVID-19 issue, we decided, what if we pivot? Instead of put the sensors in the schools, what if we put the sensors out into the community? So what if we put it at the airports, locations where they're actually doing the drive-up testing? What if we put it at our local businesses like Foodland or City Meal or Zippy's, and actually count people? And so what I didn't mention is the system right now is kind of tuned to count and tally people. So it is not a motion detector, it is a people detector. Now it does not know who you are, but it will count the number of people going by. And so this is a video that I'll play for you of what this system can do. And you'll notice that this is in Waikiki. If you had to physically count these many people, it would be very, very difficult to do. But for artificial intelligence, it's very easy. But you'll notice that it is counting things other than people. But we're purposely turning off those capabilities. But there are at least 80 different kinds of objects we can turn on. But to start, we're just starting with people. Now, let me see if I have this one. There's a hand washing one. So Mark Kimura, who is kind of the brains behind a lot of this stuff, is we said, of course, washing your hands are very important. So we can count the number of people washing, who washed their hands, but also gamifying it. So Mark created a point system. So you want to get to 100 points because that'll make sure you have a really clean hands. So yeah, so imagine hand sanitizer dispenser, you have this thing there, and it's basically counting the number of people that actually washed their hands and if they did it well. This is some of the goals and some of the benefits. This is pretty wordy stuff, but I'll just kind of say that, what we're trying to do is how do we apply artificial intelligence to solve really big issues like this COVID-19 thing. We want to get actually students using AI and to imagine what artificial intelligence could do to help the world. Here in Hawaii, we're really trying to create, how do we create this next generation of social entrepreneurs using AI for good? The other thing is we want to keep students, teachers, and parents in the community engaged and working together to speed the recovery for Hawaii and do it from home. the other thing is we wanted to provide a tool, like a real-time information, sensor information uh, that teachers and students can access safely, but make it user-friendly. So the whole idea around artificial intelligence, what's been difficult is unless you're pretty technical, it's hard to step into that world. But Mark has, and our team has been able to kind of pull it together and put together a system where you don't have to have any programming experience. Um, the sensors we'll put out into the field, and basically the guys will talk about how we use some very simple tools, some dashboarding tools. And so the kids can actually learn how to build their own custom dashboards. And then those students who have a little bit more technical skills can actually pull the data and build apps. Again, I think part of it is we want to harness the community because, and I think that's what we're seeing is no one's kind of just waiting for government to figure this out. Everyone is kind of banding together as a community to try and solve this problem. And we want to help enable that. The data that's being collected is available to students and teachers. And then we're thinking probably the state and county departments will find some of this stuff very interesting and useful. We'll have baseline data all the way to, again, historical information when people go back and look at this data. The other thought is to host datathons and hackathons with challenges that are sponsored by various state, city, and industry partners. Now, these are some questions, and a lot of it came from my friend Pam Kohara from KMR Complex here in Honolulu. And if this doesn't answer your major question, then stay on the line at 105 and we can continue and talk about your question. So the idea is like, so first question one is how do you reduce exposure to COVID-19 for students and teams? Basically, everything is done online. Everything used to be very physical, face-to-face. We go to the school, we install the sensors, we train the teachers, we train the students. Everything will be online. What about the privacy issues if you're counting people? So one of the things we'll show you too is the only data we actually collect from these sensors, and everything is processed at the sensor level, is basically we have a date and timestamp when the sensor detects a person. We do not know who you are. You could be walking in front of the sensor 1,000 times, and we'll count 1,000 times with 1,000 date and timestamps, but we won't know who you are. We're not doing any facial recognition or any of that. We don't store any videos. We don't store any pictures. The only thing that gets stored and gets sent up to the cloud is a date and timestamp, as well as maybe some location information. What kind of training would schools need to have to extract and make sense of the data? So as much as possible, we try to make sure that probably middle school students and above really, and teachers in general wouldn't need any kind of programming experience or any really deep technical experience. It's really kind of a tool from which you can then do other things, but we would train you on how to use this tool. And again, no programming experience would be necessary. What can and can't be measured, and what kind of programming must be done to create the proper measures. So again, we try to keep this really simple. Right now, it's just counting people, but as I mentioned, there's about 80 other objects that could be counted. You could also create the next evolution for the students would be being able to create their own custom detection models. So right now we're starting a project on the Big Island to count pigs in the wild, but we don't have models to understand what a pig looks like. So we literally have to build those models. The students can learn how to build that, and Mark has also been developing a tool that will make it easy for students easier, I should say, to build those models. So again, everything is kind of tool-based. We're trying to, for those students who have no programming experience or teachers with programming experience, you can still get into this very easily. And then for those students who get really excited and go more, we can definitely go more into how neural networks work and how coding works, and we can leverage a lot of what the teachers are already doing. Again, this is kind of maybe related to what kind of expertise do you need. I think more it's you bring your expertise from your domain. So if you are in banking or in a certain industry, or you're an educator of a certain kind, what you need to bring is that expertise, and kind of redesign and kind of blend in and think about. The hard part is probably connecting those worlds, right? This idea of artificial intelligence to what you're doing. But I think there's great importance if we can do that. what happens to the AI sensors and data after the COVID, this thing is over. So basically we would pull the sensors back to the school. So like I'm asking Waipahu High School and Kamehameha schools, you know, the sensors that you have, can we actually borrow them and put them out in the community? But then we'll bring them back to your school. The data will still be there from this event. We can kind of cut it off, but I think there's actually, for students who really get into it, this could be a great source for, you know, science fair projects or other things that they want to do. And then the rollout plan for the training for the students and teachers, we're looking at, right now it's tentatively set for April 9th, which is next week Thursday at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And because actually the 10th was actually a holiday. So it was originally scheduled for the 10th, but we realized it's a holiday. Then we're looking at April 17th and 24th from 9:30 to 10:30. So basically it's 3 one-hour sessions. Kind of a schedule. This is kind of like how it happens. You know, we'll talk about with the students and the teachers, you know, what is AI? Why is it so, why should we even care about this stuff? Focus on the second session would be, what is the question? We'll talk about, you know, one of the things that we want students to try and also use is their design thinking skills, right? The ability to think about what is the question you're trying to answer is part of this. So we'll brainstorm, we'll do that kind of stuff. There'll be dashboard training, the technical stuff as well. We'll start collecting, of course, data and analyzing it, and then potentially have different kinds of student hackathons, or again, maybe Department of Health says we want to understand, or DOT, Department of Transportation, says they want to understand a certain thing. Can you guys help us figure what, answer that question? And then further down the road is kind of teacher training for PD as well. Okay, I'm going to turn this now over to Dr. Kimura, if I can get myself out of this thing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mark Kimura. I'm a senior scientist at Oceanit. So first, I want to kind of illustrate a point to kind of show you, let you feel where we are in terms of AI. Okay, so this one is showing the share of the population using the internet, starting from 1990 to 2016. And it's actually, I'm highlighting in North America right now. So in 1995, we had Windows 95, eBay, Yahoo, and Amazon, right? So we could say this is actually equivalent to today's AI in terms of the phase in the development of AI, right? So let's see what came after 1995. And we have Google, Wikipedia, Skype, Facebook, YouTube, iPhone, and Uber, and many other innovations. So the point is, we think there are so many applications of AI today, even today, but we really don't know what's coming for the next, say, 20 years. Most likely things that we are not even aware, we can't even imagine today. So this pretty infographics is actually showing the application of AI today and also what's about to happen. Okay, perhaps most relevant industries, perhaps to Hawaii, might be things like hospitality, of course, and you know, smart hotels, predict supply chain, and so on. Maybe healthcare, that's a huge industry in Hawaii as well. Things like, of course, diagnosis, which is pretty, actually, AI is pretty good at already. And drug discovery. Imagine maybe in 20 or 30 years from today, AI can actually invent or discover the cure for COVID-19 by running a computer maybe for a week or so. And also retail spaces. In fact, our Aloha AI system can actually help physical retail space tremendously. For example, we could count the number of people in front of the store, and then we could also count the number of people who are coming into the store. We can tally the number of people who look at some ads, for example, and maybe calculate conversion rate or something like that, right? And real estate, and of course, education. We already have plagiarism checkers, and then perhaps in the future, there might be something like automatic grading. So in the very near future, what kind of jobs are becoming already hot? Okay, so this is showing top 10 emerging jobs expected in 2012-22. So among those top 10 lists, we have data analysis and science and data scientists, AI and machine learning specialists. So these are directly connected to AI, and also big data specialists like this. So it's already huge. It's going to be larger and larger in terms of how dominant or how popular AI-related jobs will be. Okay, and also if you look at the top 10 declining jobs, we see common jobs like accounting and accountants and auditors and general and operations managers, things that are common today, but we expect to see that these are declining. Okay, okay, so next, so I want to show you some actual examples of the AI applications that we built at Oceanit, so that you can kind of feel and see what AIs can do. Okay, first of all, this is Aloha shirt detector. Is it going to start? Yeah. So this is my living room, my old place. When you're not wearing Aloha shirt, it's showing no Aloha shirt. But then when you're actually showing wearing Aloha shirt, it knows that it's an Aloha shirt. So even my dog's Aloha shirt, right? So you see, telling whether a shirt is an Aloha shirt or not, it's not an easy task. I mean, it's kind of easy for humans, but for machines, traditionally, it's been really, really difficult, as you will see later in my presentation. Okay, the next application. So this is actually one of my main projects at Oceanit. It's a project with the Department of Energy. So the idea is when there's a hurricane like this, this is an actual video footage from drone footage from Hurricane Katrina, 10 days after the hurricane, right? So the AI is detecting healthy utility poles, and you can see that now right now in the bottom. Down poles, the healthy poles we're showing the green box, and then when there's a down poles, it's showing a red bounding box, as you will see soon. See, even the confusing things like trees and other things, the AI can tell if it's a utility poles or not. I think we'll see right there. So that's another example of AI. Next. Yeah, so this is a PPE detection. We used to not know what PPE means, but I think most of us know what it is. It's protective, personal protective equipment, right? So here Ian is coming into the picture with a hard hat now, and it's detecting the hard hat and also glasses. And he's gonna step out, and now he's wearing a high visibility vest. So we built this for things like construction sites, so that all coworkers comply to the rules, and this will make sure that everybody is wearing all protective gears that they're required to wear. So I think somebody mentioned the detecting masks. So definitely we can apply this technique to something like surgical masks and other PPEs at the healthcare industries. So this one is something we built for transportation for, say, truck drivers, for example. So it's detecting drowsiness by looking at the eyelid apertures and head angle. If you look at my face, you can see the lines around the eyes and nose and lips and the jaws. So perhaps if you deploy this to a truck or something, and when it sees a driver can start to drowse, it can kind of alert the driver, or perhaps the company can actually get the stats of how many drivers are actually looking drowsy while they're driving, right? So this next example, we built this for, this is more like an art project. It's detecting fingertips and then allowing you to draw pictures in the air. perhaps we could apply to this area where you don't want to touch things like, maybe kiosk or maybe in elevator, so you don't have to touch the elevator buttons with your fingers. So this one, we built this prototype for one of the largest energy companies in the world. So if you dig a hole and you see different kinds of rocks, and AI can actually tell the shapes of each rocks and types of rocks, basically classifying the rocks, types of rocks like this, real time. It's showing shale, basalt, and so on. And actually we get the composition of the different rock types real time, and perhaps something like a particle size distribution like this. Right? Okay. Now, so these look really, really complicated and difficult, but at a high level, it's not that difficult to actually understand why this can be done. So I want to kind of show you, quickly go through how machines learn. So using Aloha shard detector as an example. Okay, so basically machines can actually learn complicated things like complex things like detecting Aloha shards or judging what an Aloha shard is, just like a toddlers learn, right? So if you're a toddler and at some point when you're some adult will show you an Aloha shard, tell you that this is an Aloha shard. So if this is the first time, you might think that, okay, so all Aloha shards are red, which is reasonable if this is your first time. But then some other time you might hear, this is an Aloha shard too. Okay, now you think, no, Aloha shards are short sleeve shards. You're getting better. Okay, but this is not an Aloha shard showing this one. Okay, then you think Aloha shards need to have some pretty design. But then you might hear and see, this is not an Aloha shard either. Okay, so Aloha shards need to have colors. Yeah, but then this is not an Aloha shard either. When then you might think, oh, so checkered shards are not Aloha shards. So you learn an exception, you learn a exception, right? All right. But then you also hear, this is not an Aloha shard. And then, okay, Aloha shards have short sleeves perhaps. Okay, but this is an Aloha shard, maybe. Okay, so long sleeves are okay, maybe sometimes. I think it's. So in the case of humans, okay, so also you're exposed to those images. Maybe Aloha shards often have Hawaiian flowers, plants, and other things in Hawaii. So basically, if you're human, by being exposed to those experiences, you train your brain with experiences and feedback. That's how you learn. That's how your brain learns. So machines gain data, exposed to data, and you train your computer with data and labels. So that's how machines learn conceptually. So before I pass this on to my next speaker, I want to show you our Aloha AI systems. So here in this video, if you look at the video on the top, you're looking at my living room like an hour ago. And then the bottom video, it's showing what the Aloha AI sensor sees. This is an actual Aloha AI sensor hardware piece, right? As you can tell, you can actually, is actually detecting a human, only human, and where he is. And it's also counting the number of people. See, the person says right now 31, it was before 30. So the idea of Aloha AI network overall is this. So let's say this is your school campus, right? You deploy those sensors, AI sensors, and then when the sensor detects a person, it sends the data, just with stats and timestamp to a cloud data storage, and it consolidates the data from different locations, different devices. And then as a user and as a student, you can retrieve that data to your dashboard and create a dashboard and gain insights and maybe come up with actions and help the community. So that's the overall kind of concept of Aloha AI Network and how the data flows. And that's the end of my part.
So Scott is going to cover the dashboarding side of the tool. So as Mark mentioned, the sensors are placed out, will be placed out in the community. The information is sent up into the cloud and eventually gets pulled into a dashboarding tool that, again, that we selected to make it easy for students and teachers.
All right, aloha everybody. I hope you're all staying safe and enjoying your lunch. This is another representation of the system architecture. As Mark demonstrated or showed a minute ago, that the sensors communicate with a cloud database, and the data is provided to the user in the form of a Google Sheet, which is easily connected to a dashboard using a free Google product called Data Studio. So this is made so that it's very, very easy for someone to do without any coding. If you're familiar with Google Sheets, it's very easy to create a dashboard like this. It's mostly drag and drop and configure, connect the Google Sheet data source to the different graphical elements. So Ian, if you could switch me next to the dashboard. So this is just an example of a dashboard, maybe as a starter dashboard, but it's really up to the students to be creative and come up with all kinds of different ideas for dashboards. And we will be having training on how to do this. It's very, very easy. Like I mentioned, it's using Google Data Studio, which is a free product. And so you'll have to have an account for that. And then we will provide you a Google Sheet that you will use as a data source and connect the different graphs and things. And right now, so if you look at the top, there's 3 filter controls that allow you to filter the data based on the date or a date range, the hour of the day, and the device. And you can have 1 or more devices. And right now what we're showing here is some actual data from Waipahu High School on the week of the March 15th to the 21st. And it's showing that sensor number 2 had the most traffic. And if you look over here, sensor number 2 is this green line, and that has the most overall traffic. And so again, you can control how many sensors you overlay on this by using the filter. And down below, we have the total by hour. It's just the aggregate of all the sensors added up. So this is, again, just an example of what you can create. And I'll show you another example or two, but it's really wide open to all the creative ideas you can come up with for creating dashboards. You can create bar graphs. They have a lot of different graphical elements: bar graphs, pie charts, line graphs, just another sample. And again, these are just samples of things you could do. So this is traffic by hour, and then sensor totals by sensor. You can also create a map using another Google product that's free called Google My Maps. And you can embed this in the dashboard very easily. So you create the map in Google My Maps, and then you connect it here, and you can add layers that can outline the border of the school if you want. You can draw markers that show where the sensors are located. And this is very easy to do, and allows you to deploy all your sensors or plan ahead where you want to deploy them to. And again, this is very, very easy to use. It's very friendly. There's no coding involved. It's mostly drag and drop and connecting to the data that's in the sheet that we will provide. We will be having training on this. So probably inside of an hour, you'll know enough to create all these same dashboards.
Thanks, Scott. I just wanted to know, so a couple of our major strategic partners, thank you to Kamehameha Schools and to the Public Schools of Hawaii Foundation. And to roll this out, we're also looking for a couple more big partners to join us. There are other, actually, we're looking for many different partners. So we will be working with some of you know Steve Sue and BizGenix to help us do some things as well. These are some of the next steps. So we're looking for schools, classrooms. And again, everything is driven really from the teacher level in a way. So we're looking for a few classrooms, community locations where it makes sense to put these people counting sensors. So again, it could be, you know, local businesses. I saw Michelle, you know, I don't know if there's people going to banks or to, you know, kiosk or vending machines or whatever. You could literally count people going to these places. Part of it is people are trying to understand the concentration levels, right? We want to figure out, or the kids can help develop strategies if, for example, as they look at the data and they notice that, you know, this time of the day, it's really busy. There's probably too many people gathering at that time period. What kind of strategies can we implement to spread those people out so they're not all kind of crunched up together? There's many other, I think, so many questions that we could have the kids kind of tackle. We're looking, of course, for funders and sponsors and partners of all kinds. First training that we'll be hosting is April 9th. And again, a lot of this is, we're kind of wayfinding our way. So April 9th from 1 to 2, and then the 17th and the 24th of April from 9:30 to 10:30. All of it is online. And how to get involved with the trainings or any of this stuff, we have a survey of interest. So if you see that bit.ly down there, it says Aloha AI COVID-19. If you have any interest in any of these things or you have questions, please go to that bit.ly link. We'll post it up in the classroom, in the chat as well. The classroom, we'll post this in the chat room. And just be aware, it'll ask you for your basic information, I think, but then it'll ask, there's like 3 different categories of stakeholders. And if that stakeholder class doesn't apply to you, it's like, you know, maybe because you're a school educator, but you're not, you know, you can skip that question. So you can skip on to the question that the type of stakeholder you are if you have interest. And so questions from the group. That was a lot in a very short period of time.
Hi, I have a question. Is the are the little devices able to do that to do the classification on the Raspberry Pi themselves?
Yes. So actually, the classification is happening on the device itself.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So then we're trying to figure out too how to minimize the Wi-Fi traffic that would occur. So a lot of the detection work is done on the device side, and then I think we kind of pull that data up every few minutes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Age range for schools. I see Katie's question. I'm thinking it's gonna probably be middle and high schoolers at this point. But you know, I don't want to underestimate our elementary school students. In fact, they're probably the ones that would probably be the ones to help us most think about like brainstorming, like where should we put these sensors? They'll probably come up with places that we never even imagined, but could be really important. I think if they understood that these things count people, and you just brainstorm, they probably come up with 200 locations, and a few of those locations probably would be like things we just would not imagine. Oh, by the way, we are, Pam had a question about traffic. So we're actually, our are doing using these sensors to do a traffic study. We'll be starting sometime this year, where we're counting vehicles, and we can actually classify the type of vehicle. So we know the difference between, say, a bus and a truck and a motorcycle and a sedan. So we're actually going to be doing some traffic studies for the Department of Transportation.
Ian, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, Bernadette.
Okay.
Yes. Hi.
How are we connecting with the DOE right now, where we have everybody working from home, teachers and students? How are you connecting to the leadership there to make sure this gets out?
Yeah, so I invited Dr. Kishimoto and Camille, and there are some DOE leadership people on the call. This also went to the complex area superintendents. I don't know if Brooke's on the line. Brooke is the for the DOE. So yeah, so we've been trying to keep them informed. And actually, what's really nice is Dr. Kishimoto, a year ago, when we first started doing these AI workshops, she proactively approached us and said, I want one of these AI workshops for the DOE leadership. So she used one of her complex area superintendent meetings, had everyone come in, and basically we had them for about 4 or 5 hours. So we did this big thing, and thank you to Kamehameha Schools who provided the location and the facilities and the support to do it. So they've been exposed even a year ago, and then now we were, at the time we didn't even have this idea of like how we're going to roll it out into the schools till last year, until Keith Hayashi kind of challenged us to like, how do you bring this into my school? So they're informed too about the system, and that we were rolling out at Waipahu High School already. And so I don't know if any of the leadership is on the call right now, but we'll make sure the video goes out.
I'll talk to Camille too, because this is a perfect time and a perfect opportunity to get this going. Pretty exciting, actually. Thank you for all you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Bernard. Thank you for all you're doing. Normally we, just so everyone knows too, like normally we would work on PD and curriculum and teacher training, but this one is really different. We're kind of doing it backwards. We're kind of like developing a tool, and we're trying to engage the student. We're trying to give them this tool and say, okay, with this tool, what kind of problems can you solve? And we're focusing around this COVID-19 issue. And then from there we'll backfill with, more details and stuff. But we love to, yeah. So what we're looking for too is multiple things, right? We're looking for teachers and schools that want to participate in this. We're looking for organizations like, like Bernadette and CTE, whoever partners. I see Steve Sue on the line. Hey, Steve, brother. Who can we kind of work together? Because I think based on our stuff that we're doing at the company, this unfortunately it's gonna take a while before we go back to any kind of level of what's normal. And so the question is, what do we do while we have to work from home and stay at home?
Ian, I'm noticing questions about where to get the sensors. People were noticing it on Amazon, but DOE has a hard time getting things from Amazon. I think there's a limit or something. And another question I noticed was standards alignment.
Yeah, we would have to, I think part of it is those teachers and I don't know if Brett guys are on the line too, but I think part of it is working with the DOE to help kind of design, because we're kind of working backwards, right? I mean, we're almost literally starting with what is the problem? Here's a technology, and trying to have the kids help us apply that to a problem as we kind of develop the training, develop the alignments. So this is where I think partnering with those teachers and folks who are interested, we can definitely do some good things.
I have a little experience doing hackathons. We've run 2 at Campbell this year and last year. And every single teacher that's attended the final presentation has said there's obvious connections through English, obviously math, computer science, and other subjects as well, social studies, business classes, if you want to get into the entrepreneurial side. So there's a slew of available standards that we can tap into if you guys are interested.
If I can make a comment about what we're trying to do here at Waipahu High School.
Yeah. Hey, Carl, how's it? Yeah, please. Sorry, forgot to pull you in.
When this was introduced to us, what we were looking at was using it as part of our capstone class for the students that were looking at different projects. And so when you talk about tying in all the different subject areas, basically they would tie it in with their capstone. And this was just another tool that they could use to actually do some of the data gathering that they might want to do in terms of what their project entailed. So we were just getting started with the library. So we were going to present the data to the students so that they could actually see what the data would be, what kind of data it would be producing, and if they had other thoughts about where they would want to take this on campus first. So one of the things was the use of the electronic cold water fountains. Also, maybe different places around the library of, not library, but the office of entry, and where there might be kids going in and out. So it was just to get started so that they could actually brainstorm different ideas of usage. But again, trying to use it through the capstone, I think, gives them actually additional tools if you can actually do this, and then hopefully tying in with Oceanit, that if there were other models or things that needed to be done because they are of their project, that maybe that's something we could partner with Oceanit, and maybe they could actually learn a little bit more like the programming and other things that it would entail for them to actually model it out.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that people have asked too, like, okay, so what happens after, you know, the kids do some of this work? Is there, you know, a path forward, right? I mean, so this is where the kids will learn more about how neural networks operate, but also developing their own kind of custom models for detection work. Aspirationally, you know, when I'm asked, like, so what are you hoping that this will do? In my mind, is with students who get design thinking experience, they get some coding experience. It's really the mindsets, right, that they get, that we would create this whole next generation of social entrepreneurs that are embracing artificial intelligence instead of being afraid of it, and help us to diversify our economy. I see Mickey on the line here too. And I think part of it is how can we give these kinds of tools to our students now so that they can kind of play around with it and imagine what the potentials are, because they will come up with, I think, applications like none of us as adults are going to figure out, but they will, and they will spawn this whole next revolution of kind of companies for Hawaii that we so desperately need. So that's kind of the dream. I really appreciate all of you guys joining us. Please do the survey of interest if there's any interest in further discussions. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. For those of you who still have questions and want to talk some more, we'll stay on the line. But for everyone else, it is past 1 o'clock, and I really appreciate everyone joining us and spending your lunchtime with us. So with that, I'll let everyone kind of sign off who wants to take off. And then for anybody who wants to stay on, we'll stay on. Okay, thanks everybody.